may be hard to tell because I left my briefcase and smock at the office, but I am concurrently a businessman and an artist, a creative professional, some call it. My business is farm run, and I do video, illustration, lettering, and design for agricultural enterprises. And though my days are filled with these creative pursuits, as little as 4 years ago, I was terrified of art. And I think that my complex is rather common in that I was afraid to make anything because I thought that someone else had to declare one as an artist. What if I sounded stupid? What if I made something that was bad? These kinds of judgment that I was afraid of. So I often cite my college graduation as the beginning of my education. And it was about that time that a switch was flipped in my head, and I was almost instantaneously liberated from this creative oppression that I was feeling. And I just kind of exploded into the world with this ravenous and insatiable desire to create. And so it was with an ethos of screw you, convention and normalcy, that I hatched a plan to run across the country with my belongings and a baby jogger, working at farms along the way. So I started a blog called Farm Run to document my travels. And I was in pursuit of this wild and nebulous personal philosophy that I now understand is a function of a culture called the Agrarian Renaissance, which is an ongoing rebirth of traditional agricultural economies. And I was just making everything that I could, and everything I made was a function of that pursuit of that philosophy, and it was all going up on my blog. And the blog was a great platform for me because it had no creative or editorial oversight and allowed me to develop this personal voice and style that was uniquely my own. And like I said, I was making lots of stuff, and really I was making a lot of bad stuff. But I was able to recognize that what I was making sucked, and every time I made something sucky, I got a little better. So in 2010, I moved to Vashon Island to work for Farmstead Meatsmith, with whom I slaughter and butcher livestock for small farmers. And shortly thereafter, we decided to make a series of instructional videos on this topic of traditional pork butchery, and it was called On the Anatomy of Thrift. So we launched a Kickstarter campaign to try and fund it. We ended up raising just over $11,000, and it was the first time that I was ever paid to create anything. And furthermore, people who saw the campaign started asking me to make things for them, and then people started paying me to make things for them. So I took this blessing, and I set up an LLC, and I started my crash course in pricing and licensing and all of the stuff that's not the fun stuff you thought you were going to get to do in running a creative business. So, about 6 months later, right after I released the second video in the series, Jared leaves a comment, and he says, "This is amazing, the kind of thing that alters views of reality." And I was really flattered. And then about an hour later, Jared sends me an email. Turns out that Jared is the VP of operations at Kickstarter, and he invites me to speak to the company in New York City. So after the fireworks stopped going off, I said, heck yeah, and they flew me out. And I fretted the whole way. I was terrified, because here I am, like this guy who feels kind of like he's faking it, and here is this mega star of the creative community who thinks that I'm making it. So the talk goes really well, and afterwards Jared tells me that my pitch video is one of the best they've ever seen. And that made me want to squeal and giggle with delight. And I was really riding high for a couple of days after that. And I felt like I had made it, kind of, but then I examined it and I realized that what I was excited about was a sense of validation. I felt like the world was acknowledging me both as a professional and as an artist. And though Kickstarter played a significant role in my genesis as a businessman, they're not responsible for this place that I am in my life right now, which I think is artistry. And artistry, to me, is a pursuit of excellence in any endeavor. It's a mentality and an approach, and there's a significant degree of humility involved. You have to be able to acknowledge your faults and your failures and learn from them. And there's often a resultant accrual and expression of skills. And finally, there's courage, right? You have to have the gumption to grab the reins and just do it. You're guaranteed the opposite of success if you don't try. So these last 4 years, for me, have been a wild evolution. And I don't know what is coming up in the next 4 or beyond, but I'm certain that it remains a principal intention for me to pursue any endeavor that comes my way with artistry. Thanks.